Alright, so let's explain this shot in its entirety. What went through my mind when I was setting up. Now, this is not the finished shot. This is the ambient exposure, which is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's a good start. For this shot, I set up a 1-point composition set on this right here. Not the middle of the actual the what is it called, the hood, the range, I can't remember, but the middle or the side of it on the left. And from there I used these lines right here just to guide myself into getting that perfect 1 point. So the basics of a 1-point composition is you really want to nail it if you're going to do it. Don't do it if you're not comfortable really trying to do it, because it just ends up looking awkward. And when you have a 1-point composition, you're trying to get that 1-point composition, you really want to pay attention to your surroundings. Use objects in the shot, use cabinetry, use the wall, use anything to help you really line up that perfect 1-point. So what I've used is this wall right here, this cabinet, this entryway. I wish I could have used the island, but it is a weird curved island, so I couldn't use that. I've also used the floor right here. You can see just a little bit of these lines right here. Helped me a little bit. But that's pretty much it on the composition, how I went about doing it. So let's go ahead and go through each of the images and see like what I've done exactly and what needs to be done. So this is an ambient shot. Nothing really special about it. I've exposed it for the histogram to be a little bit more towards the right side. That being because I wanted to get a good balance between light and dark without it being, too dark or too bright. Because getting that perfectly perfect is definitely going to help you with your final composite. All right, let's go ahead and go to. I'm going to work backwards actually. This shot, you can see it already. I've stopped down to a 40th of a second from a 10th, and this basically is just for this laundry room area right here. And I'm gonna have to fix the white balance. It's way too cool to be fitting into this room, because you can see it's a warm room, so having it be that cool definitely wouldn't make any sense. So moving on to the next one. Again, same issue with the white balance. I'm going to have to fix that. I shoot auto white balance just so I can get the tint right. And the temperature is something that I adjust. Is basically the only thing that I adjust. Tint, when you're shooting an auto white balance, typically it'll get it right. I don't know if that's the case for all cameras. I use a Sony A6000. So I find that it has a really good auto white balance. So this is just bounced into the ceiling. I was standing like right behind this. You can't even see me, but I am basically just scrunched up against this wall and just shooting the flash into that ceiling. So it's a little bit overexposed as well, so I'm gonna have to fix that. This is just for the hallway. Now we get into the cool part. So basically this is, I'm lighting this whole entire left side, but I'm not going to use any of the left side. I'm going to use the right side. And the reason why is because this side is completely unusable from a compositing standpoint. There's no data here. I'm here. I don't want to be in the photo. So I want to just use everything on the right side and nothing on the left. If that makes if that makes any sense. So, and vice versa for the other side. Really nailing these side-to-side shots is a lot easier when you're doing a 1-point, because you have those lines as guides. So when you have those lines as guides, it's really easy to just, go one side to the other. But when you're doing like a 2-point composition, it gets a little confusing as to where you need to stand. But as long as you remember, hey, left side, right side, and then place yourselves in those spots. You never want to be really in the middle, unless you're trying to do something that involves like backlighting or just any corrections that you may have. But typically, I will never be in the middle. I just find no use for it. Moving on, this is the base flash layer, which is just a flash above the camera. I use an AD200 pretty much all the time. If I need to, I will use a 600 watt strobe and use that, but I rarely ever need to use it for homes like these because they're just not that big. Even with taller ceilings, I find that the AD200 is really good at spreading out that light. Sometimes I'll have to bump up my ISO to like 500. It's not an issue for me. I don't really have any noise problems with the A6000. So that's pretty much it for the shots. Let's go ahead and look through them again just to get a little bit of a summary. There we go. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and adjust the the photos in Lightroom. So I'm gonna go ahead and bump up the what's it called? The temperature on this one, and I'm gonna boost the exposure so my gray, which is brightness, is in between these two lines right here, or this third column from the left. So that's where I want it to be, and I'm mainly just looking at the ceiling, and that's pretty much it. I really just want that ceiling to be a little bit brighter when I go to blend it. Next, we want to work on this, and again, I'm going to go ahead and boost that to 4500 Kelvin, and I'm going to bring, I don't want to look at this side. I'm just looking at this side. I'm just looking at the brightness values over here. So let's go ahead and do that. That's looking pretty good. I think that's about like that, a little bit under. Next, same thing, gonna boost the white balance to make it a little bit warmer. And I'm gonna bring up that brightness a little bit. Next, okay, this is something weird that I do for adjoining spaces. I like to make them a tad bit warmer, just to have a little bit of separation between the main living space and the adjoining space. So when I look at the photo, you can see that there is separation between the two. It's not just blending into one color or just one space. It doesn't look like its own. It doesn't look like it's just part of the wall. Okay. Gonna make that a little bit warmer. Gonna bring the not the white balance, but the brightness down, and we're gonna bring up the white balance on this one, 4800 Kelvin. These values, don't write them down. They change constantly, so you just want to really go with what is accurate, pretty much. I never use the eyedropper. I find that it's really finicky to use. It's just not something that I would recommend using. If you do want to use white balance, take a look at your RGB values in the histogram. So if I wanted like a perfectly neutral color, I would bring this down to like 3650, and you can see the room has neutralized itself, and you notice how the colors up here have bunched up together where the brightness value is. Watch what happens when I go to 4800 degrees Kelvin. You see how they're more spread out? That's something that you can definitely use to your advantage when you're using white balance, or when you're adjusting white balance. Let's move on to the ambient. Ambient's pretty good. I don't really care about the white balance. I'm gonna bring this exposure down, but that's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and select all these layers, edit, and open as layers in Photoshop. Let's let that open up. I don't think it's gonna open up. Maybe it's, oh, there it is. I have my actions open. So we're not gonna be using any actions today, because it's really important to get this stuff down manually before using any shortcuts. So that's something I learned in elementary school. So they always teach you the long way, and then they teach you the short way, just so you have a better understanding of what you're actually doing. So what we have here is all of our layers, and we're going to select all of them, and we're going to go to Layer, Arrange, Reverse. So now that we have our ambience on top and our base flash on the bottom, we're going to turn on both of our side-to-side layers, and we're going to put a layer mask on that by holding down, or not holding down, by clicking this button right here, the Add Layer Mask button. Next, we're going to hit G on the keyboard, go to our gradient editor, and change it to foreground to background, and click OK. Click D on the keyboard to reset your swatches right here to white and black, and we want to hit X on the keyboard to swap the swatches, so we're now working with black as the foreground. So basically you want to have the black go on the side that your light stand or that your shelf is on. That way it hides it and is revealing the layer underneath it that doesn't have that information in it. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Hold down Shift and left click, and you can draw a perfectly straight gradient, and that's looking pretty good. Next, we're going to hit B on the keyboard, hold down Control, Option, and drag, or left click and drag your mouse or your pen, and you can resize the brush. You can also adjust the hardness values, but we're going to stick with a soft brush for today. And we're going to, since we're still on black, we'll work from the left, just like so. And I'm working with a pretty low, what's it called? Flow. I had a hair on my my screen. I thought it was the photo. I got scared for a second. So switch to white, your swatches to white, and work on that right side, just like so. So that's looking good, but this middle area is looking a little bit funky because it is so bright. So we want to bring that base layer, and we're going to apply a black layer mask by holding down Option and Add Layer Mask. Change the blend mode to darken, and just brush in that area. I'm going to brush it in on the ceiling as well. Perfect. That's looking way, bleh, can't talk. That's looking way better. That's good right there. I'm gonna duplicate this layer and fill the contents of the layer mask to black real quick. And I'm gonna set the blend mode back to normal, and I'm just gonna fix this area right here because it's really bugging me how the brightness is just a little bit different. So that's looking good. I like that. And actually, let me fix that over there. Yeah, that looks good. Next, let's move on to that hallway. So what we want to do is apply a black layer mask, hold down Option, Add Layer Mask, change the blend mode. Instead of darken, we're going to go lighten. And we're just going to paint in that area. Perfect. And actually, I need to get a little bit more down there. Cool. And we're going to do the same thing for that other area that's dark. So apply a black layer mask and hit lighten and paint in that area. A little bit too bright. There we go. That's looking perfect. Now let's apply some ambient light in there, because I think it's lacking the glow that I really like from the ambient layer. So let's go ahead and put a black layer mask on that. I already did that. Change the blend mode to luminosity if you feel like it. Sometimes I work in normal if the lights are off, but most of the time it's luminosity. So B for brush, big old brush. Change the flow to like 5, and we're just gonna paint black. Or sorry, paint white. I'm just gonna get some of that glow. I'm gonna fix some of that. Put some nice glow underneath these chairs. Just like so. I'm gonna do that. And that's looking really good. I like the way that turned out. Alright. That's pretty much it for that. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and right click and flatten the image. And we're gonna hit Command S to save it back into Lightroom. It'll bring it in as a TIFF, and I work with it from there. And really what I just mean is I'm gonna apply a vignette, just a subtle vignette. Just about a -20 vignette. So that's looking pretty good. That's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and look at the before and after.